Need a scarf that is fast, cozy, and practical? This pocket scarf is perfect for keeping warm and carrying your essentials hands-free. Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today I'm going to show you how to make this super cozy pocket scarf that's perfect for beginners. It's stylish, practical, and quick to make, ideal for chilly days when you want to keep your hands warm or carry something with you. So what you need for that is yarn. You'll need 4 balls of yarn, so 2 balls of 2 different colors. I'm using a size 4 worsted weight acrylic, so just acrylic yarn. The finished size of my pocket scarf is 59 inches by 9 inches wide. I'm using an 8mm crochet hook. You'll also need a pair of scissors, a needle for sewing in your ends, and 7 stitch markers. These are just to keep track of your starting chains. You don't have to count all the way, but they really help. So grab some stitch markers if you have them, or paper clips if you don't. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. So we're going to be using 2 strands of yarn for this pattern. So just get your tails and make a slip knot any which way you normally do, leaving your tails long enough to sew in with a needle later, and pop those onto your hook. Grab your stitch markers so that they are handy. Those are 7 stitch markers or paper clips or whatever you're using for stitch markers. And for your chain, we don't want them to be super tight on our hook. We want them to be a little bit loose, so don't correct when you pull your yarn through. Slide it up onto your hook and just leave it relaxed like that. We don't need them really tight, so don't pull and then chain again. Just let them be as they are. So just practice letting your chains be and count to 25. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 24, and 25. Roll your chain to the side. We want to be looking for those back loops. So that first back loop right there underneath our working yarn, we're going to pop a stitch marker right into that back loop. Just like that. And chain 25 again. 1, 2, 3, 24, and 25. Grab another stitch marker and pop it into that back loop right underneath your working yarn, into that last chain we made right there. And now pause the video and keep chaining along until you have used up all of your stitch markers or chained 175. So when you've used up all of your stitch markers, you have chained 175. For me, I'm just doing a smaller sample for this tutorial. You can pop that stitch marker out if it's in the way or bothering you, and just roll that chain to the side. So pretty little V's to the side, back loops facing up. So our first back loop has that stitch marker. The second back loop is right here. We're going to be working into the third back loop right there. So wrap your yarn and into the third back loop, just slide it onto your hook and make 1 double crochet. And into the next back loop, right there, 1 double crochet. And we're going to work along our chain, making 1 double crochet into every back loop, all the way along the chain. So you can pause the video, just keep sliding those back loops up onto your hook and making a double crochet, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your chain. If you'd like to follow along with the written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. At the end of your chain, your last back loop is right there on top of that slip knot. So just work into that last back loop with your last double crochet. You can pop your stitch markers out whenever they bother you. You don't have to leave them in. And that finishes row 1. To start row 2, chain 1 and turn your work. Now we're going to be working into the front loops So we're not going into the whole stitch. We're just going to be going in to those front loops on that stitch right there. So wrap your yarn and slide your hook up into the center of that stitch, the center of those V's, and make one front loop only double crochet. And into the next stitch, just slide those front loops on. So it's in the middle of that V. And make one front loop only double crochet. And we're going to do that all the way along our row, just picking up the front loops and making a front loop only double crochet. So you can pause the video, keep working along, bringing your hook up into the center of that stitch, just getting those front loops onto your hook and making one front loop only double crochet into each stitch. And I will meet you when we get to the end of our row right over here. So at the end of our row, we kind of have this little circle left, that little bit right there. So we have to make 2 stitches. One stitch is going into this front loop only, and the next is going to go into both loops, or the last stitch is going to go into both loops like our real stitch at the end. So our last front loop only into this little guy, just the front loops. And then the last one is going to be a real double crochet. So not a front post, but a real double crochet. And you might have to turn your work a little bit so you can see those V's. We're going to be getting underneath all of that right there. So we're going to finish with one real double crochet. Just like that. So we're going to repeat that row another 8 times. We want a total of 10 rows. So now this is the repeat, what you're going to keep doing for the rest of your scarf. So to start the repeat, chain 1 and turn your work, and your first front loop double crochet goes into this first front loop right there by the chain. So wrap your yarn and into that very first stitch, that's where we start our first front loop only double crochet. Then we do front loop double crochets into every front loop all the way across. So just working into those front loops all the way across. And at the end of our row, this is going to be our real double crochet. See how that stitch goes all the way down the side? That means that is our last stitch. So grab all of that, and that will be your last double crochet. A real double crochet. So underneath all those strands, underneath the real stitch, your last double crochet. So now you can pause the video and keep working along, and I'll see you when you have done 10 rows. To count your rows, you could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or you can look for these little lines, these cute little lines. That means 2. So you just go 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So pause the video and I will see you when your scarf is as wide as you want it to be or you have done 10 rows. Now, when your scarf is the width you want it to be or you've done your 10 rows, I'm just going to pop a stitch marker in to where my working yarn is into both of those loops, just so I don't lose my stitches while we get ourselves situated. Just pop a stitch marker into that last loop while we get ourselves situated. And now along the side, we want to count up 20 stitches. So 1 is where a stitch marker is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 is right there. Just going to pop a stitch marker into number 20. And I'm going to count 20 more just to be sure. So I'm not counting this 20. That 20 is already counted. That stitch is already counted. I'm going to count 20 after that. So not where the stitch marker is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Pop a stitch marker into 20. So I want to do that, or I want to do this on both ends and both sides. We want to do that 4 times in total. So there is my 20/20 on both ends, and we're just going to fold it up. So this stitch marker, the center stitch marker, is at the bottom, and our top stitch markers. Now just pin that top stitch marker together so both sides are attached for both sides of your scarf, both sides of your pocket. Now we're going to keep going right where our yarn is attached, that last stitch we made with that stitch marker in it. We're going to be starting right over there. So just pull this first loop up and put your hook in the back of that stitch that matches that 20th stitch on our back panel. You can pop that stitch marker out and just bring that loop through. There we go. So it is now officially behind. And shrink that all down. Now we're going to make 1 single crochet into both of those stitches. So into the front stitch and also right where we are at the back. So this feels a bit weird. The yarn is confusing. Just make 1 single crochet into both of those stitches that had a stitch marker. So 1 single crochet. And that is where we're starting. We can pop a stitch marker into that stitch just so you can recognize it when you have worked your way around. And now we're going to go into each pair of stitches with 1 single crochet. So just look at the top, kind of sandwich it and tip it up so you can see those next stitches that match. And make 1 single crochet into each pair. So the front of the pocket and the back of the pocket, they'll get 1 single crochet to bring them together. You can pause the video, keep working down along this side of your pocket, and I will meet you when you get to the end, that stitch marker right there. You can pop that stitch marker out when you get close to it. That's going to be our single crochet right there. And now we're going to work in to that stitch. Let me show you. Now here is going to be our corner. Can you see that? So into that space, 1 single crochet, chain 1, and 1 more single crochet. So that gets us around the corner. Rotate your work. We're going to work along the bottom of our pocket. Chain 1, and now we're going to make a single crochet into every stitch along those lines. Can you see those lines? So into this very first line, that very first stitch, we're going to make 1 single crochet. And this is just going to help the bottom of our pocket not stretch out. 1 chain, or chain 1, into the next line, pop in your hook into that stitch and make 1 single crochet, chain 1, jump over to the next line, make 1 single crochet, chain 1, jump over to that next line and just pop your hook in. We don't want to go around or into any of these big spaces. We want to be going into a stitch. So just where those lines are, pop your hook in and make 1 single crochet. So you can pause the video and keep working along. Chain 1 and 1 single crochet all the way along the bottom of your pocket. I'll meet you when you get to your next stitch marker at the end of our side, end of the bottom of the pocket. At the end of your row, I've done my chain 1. I'm ready to do my single crochet into that last stitch, or where the line is, our single crochet at the line. But I want to make sure that we're lined up and that stitch marker is right where I want it to be. So just take the side of your pocket and make sure it's lined up so that you know you're going into the right spot. And then where that stitch marker is, I'm just going to pop it out. It's a bit in my way, but that's the right stitch. I'm just going to go in right there and make 1 single crochet. chain 1, and 1 more single crochet into that same space, that same spot. Now we can turn our work, rotate our work a little bit, and we're going to be working up along this side of our pocket now. Now, an easy way to line up your stitches working up, because where this lines up is more important than where this corner is, just take your chains along the side and just group them together. And whenever you want to, just pop in a stitch marker to pinch that pair together and just work your way down so you know exactly where you need to start at that corner. And then just get yourself lined up right in that corner. So we know that all of these stitches are going to line up going back up this side. And now just take your time working into each pair, going all the way up the side of your pocket. You can pause the video. I'll meet you when you get to your last stitch marker where it is joined right at the top. When you get to your stitch marker, that is where your last single crochet, your last joining single crochet is going to be. So into the front stitch and into the back stitch, 1 single crochet. So now you can pause the video, keep working along, do the exact same thing when you reach the other pocket, and I'll meet you when you get right back here to the stitch marker. When you get back up to your stitch marker or around to your stitch marker, just make sure you've made 1 single crochet into each stitch along the side. Now our next stitch is our first stitch of single crochet. So we know that that stitch marker is our first stitch. I want to join with an invisible join just so we don't see anything right where our pockets are. So go ahead and cut your yarn. Pull your hook up and your yarn through. So that's that last stitch we made. We haven't chained 1, just the last single crochet. We pulled our yarn straight up through it. Thread that yarn onto a yarn needle, both strands. And now we can pop out that stitch marker because we know where that stitch is. And I'm just going to go right underneath both strands, just where I would be putting my crochet hook, except I'm putting my needle and bringing that yarn through. And I'm keeping an eye on where it came from. So that stitch, our last stitch right there, I'm keeping an eye on it. And I'm going to pop my hook right back down in the center of that stitch. That is our invisible join. Now we're just going to shrink it up so that it looks natural. Looks like about the same size as the rest of our stitches, just like that. Now you could go ahead and sew in your tails, and we're finished. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video up there, and stay hooked.